Hello, this is Claus Jensen presenting another classical Kasparov game. This time he plays another giant in international chess, the current world champion Anand. And the game you're about to watch is the famous 10th game of their 1995 PCA World Championship Match in New York. Kasparov is playing the white pieces, Anand is black, and we are heading for a Ruy Lopez e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, and now Anand plays the open Ruy Lopez, knight takes e4, an opening that often leads to very tactical play, and this game is certainly no exception. d4, b5, bishop b3, d5, d takes e, bishop e6, knight b d2, knight c5, c3, and d4. And in this position, Kasparov plays knight g5, and I believe this move was invented by Zaitsev, who was Karpov's second in the 1978 World Championship match against Korchnoi. And Karpov played this move as a novelty in this match, and that game followed the same paths as here. But the idea of a knight g5 is that the queen takes g5, then queen f3, and trying to take advantage of the unprotected knight on c6, and which is also pinned to the rook on a8, and if bishop d7, then there's problems on f7. So this is one of the ideas, and I think black should probably give the piece back immediately, castling queenside, and then white has no better than bishop takes e6, f takes, queen takes c6, queen takes e5, and now it seems that white can win the knight on c5 with b4, but black gets excellent compensation through a couple of dangerous passed pawns. Queen d5, queen takes, e takes, b takes c, and then d takes c3. And this should give black enough compensation. So black can in fact take on g5. But in this game and in the Karpov-Korchnoi game, d takes c3 came, then followed knight takes e6, f takes e6, b takes c3, and queen d3. And the game is still following Karpov-Korchnoi from 1978. And Karpov here played knight f3, and the game was later drawn. And there's actually a footage available on YouTube that shows a rather confident Anand making this queen d3 move. But as soon as Kasparov makes his next move, Anand surely looks a little uneasy. It's actually a great footage, and I can only recommend you finding the video on YouTube. The move Kasparov comes up with is bishop c2, and this is planning to sack a whole rook. And rumor says that this was first invented by Mikhail Tal, who didn't supply any further analysis on the move. But what we know for sure is that it was played in a Dutch correspondence game a few years before this game. Anand took on c3, and then came knight b3, sacking a rook, because after knight takes b3, bishop takes b3, then Anand can take the rook on a1. But Anand doesn't take the rook, because he can see that after queen takes a1, then queen h5 check. And if, for example, king d7 here, then the strong bishop takes e6, king takes, queen g4 check, king f7, queen f3 check, and now all the pieces are hanging in the black position, and this is losing for black. He could also, instead of king d7, try g6, but again queen f3, and then white is having a huge attack. e6 is hanging, the knight on c6 is hanging, and it's pinned to the rook. So again here white has a good attack. Another possibility, instead of taking the rook, could be to play knight takes e5 instead. But after the strong bishop d2, white gets strong attack against the vulnerable black king. For example, queen d4, queen h5 check, and if king d7, then rook a d1, bishop d6, bishop c1, and then the knight on e5 is a problem, because the black bishop is pinned to the king. And also, instead of king d7, if g6, then queen h3, queen takes d2, queen takes e6 is also winning for white. So Anand instead rejects the sack and play knight d4 instead. And now comes a very strong move from Kasparov. He plays queen g4. Clearly a home preparation, and now Anand has no alternatives but to taking the rook on a1, because after, for example, king f7, then Kasparov has the beautiful bishop takes e6 check, and after knight takes, then queen f5 check, king e7, bishop g5, and knight takes, and then rook a to c1, and the black king is in all sorts of trouble. So Anand takes the rook, playing queen takes a1, then follows bishop takes e6, and here if knight takes e6, queen takes bishop e7, then bishop g5 with a attack on the queen, and mate threat on e7 is winning for white. So rook d8 followed instead, and then comes another nice move, bishop h6. The queen has to go, it's attacked by the rook on f1, so he plays queen c3, bishop takes g7, queen d3, and bishop takes h8, and Kasparov has won back the rook, and the black king is still very vulnerable, so Anand is practically forced to try to exchange queens and hope to survive an endgame where he will be a pawn down. So he plays queen g6, bishop f6 from Kasparov, bishop e7, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, and king takes, and now we have reached this endgame where white is having a pawn, and he has more passed pawns on the king side than Anand has on the queen side, and it's that Kasparov's passed pawns are much better supported by his pieces, and the bishop is also stronger than the knight in this endgame. So Kasparov has a clear advantage here. King f2, a4, king e3, b4, bishop d1, a3, g4, rook d5, rook c4, and now Anand cannot defend both the knight on d4 and the pawn on c6. He tries with the c5, but then comes king e4 and the rook has to go, and then the pawn is falling on c5, and now it's only a matter of time before the white pawns will start marching. It's impossible for Anand to stop them. He plays on for a few more moves, but in this position Anand simply resigns the game, and I think it was a brilliant game with a lot of theoretical twists in the opening and a lot of sharp tactical lines, but in the end it was all boiled down to a clearly won endgame for Kasparov. And Kasparov later commented that this game was won from home. He had it all prepared, and Anand was probably quite shocked to lose in this manner. And I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope to see you on my blog at klausjensen.com. Bye bye for now.